And I used to spend my weekends in Mondello Park every weekend growing up, following him, helping out with him with his racing team, just always trying to get involved in some way that I could. To be honest, I probably would have loved to have been a racing driver myself, but yeah, it didn't quite work out that way. But when I finished school, I studied mechanical engineering for my undergrad, and then I went on to study a master's in motorsport engineering in the UK in Cranfield University. From after that, I did a bit of time working as an engineer with Ford Motor Company before really trying to get established in motorsport and what it would be like to work as an engineer in a racing team. And that's when I took a trip to the States in 2016 to work with an Indy Lights team called Juncos Racing. And I worked with them as a data engineer. So my role as a data engineer was, I was responsible for the whole data acquisition system. So for anyone who doesn't know about, data acquisition in motorsport, it's basically the car is fitted with a lot of different sensors that track all the different movements. They track everything that the driver's doing between the brake and the accelerator, how they're using the steering wheel, but it also tracks all of the movements of the suspension and the aerodynamics. So it was my job to understand all of the data that was coming from them, analyze the information and feed it back to a race engineer who would then make a decision on what changes they may make to the car, or changes that the driver may make to how they're driving in order to improve the performance of the car. So I suppose it was during my time studying engineering, being one of the only girls in the class, and then being the only female engineer in the race team when I went to the States, that I noticed that, up and down the pit lane, on the track, off the track, there was very few women involved, at any level. And I had such a positive experience. I really enjoyed working as an engineer, and the team were more than accepting of me, and it wasn't a strange thing to be a female engineer in the racing team. I just wondered why there wasn't more females out there, participating on the track and off the track. And I suppose this is where Formula Female stemmed from. I came back to Ireland then, and I thought I could use my experience to highlight the sport to as many young girls, or any females of any age, to try and get involved in the sport, and just to kind of highlight the different roles that are involved. So some people might not be interested in the driving part, some might be. There's engineering roles, there's mechanic roles, there's business roles. So there's so much to motorsport that I wanted to try and highlight all these different areas using the Formula Female platform. And in 2019, with Motorsport Ireland and with the backing of CJJ Motorsports, which was an Irish-founded racing team, we launched the GoGirls Karting and STEM initiative. And the idea behind that was to introduce over 1,000 young girls between the ages of 13 and 16 to motorsport, by getting behind the wheel, engaging them in the sport itself, educating them through the use of STEM education, how these roles play a part in motorsport, and ultimately to empower them to believe that, when they came away from this experience, that it was something that they could do themselves, and they would have the courage and the confidence to step into what's perceived and is a male-dominated sport. And so it's been a fantastic initiative. We obviously COVID hit and it's kind of stopped us running it, but so far we've had over 500 students all over Ireland go through the GoGirls initiative, and it's been great and really rewarding to see the interest that's come from it, and even with events like this from you guys, to see just how much the interest is starting to grow around the country in different ways. So I suppose that's a little bit about myself and a little bit about Formula Female. Obviously Nicole is one of our ambassadors. I got introduced to Nicole probably in early 2018. I think it was early 2018. And, I was amazed at her ability on the racetrack. And again, she was the only woman who was really, trying to create a path for herself in motorsport and really trying to push the boundaries to become a professional racing driver. And so I thought what she was doing was amazing. And I suppose like Formula Female and Nicole provides a platform to promote everything that she's doing. And yeah, so I'll hand over to Nicole and let her tell you a little bit about her journey.
Yeah, so I'm Nicole. I grew up around cars and motorsport when I was younger, so I was just always around cars, so it was inevitable that I was going to end up in some way, shape, or form in motorsport. Usually, when people start off in motorsport, they start off in karts when they're 6 or 7, I think. But I had a very late start into the sport. I didn't start until 2015. I followed my dad all around the country when I was growing up when he was rally driving, and it's just all and he just all I wanted to do was to get into a car and race. But unfortunately, we didn't have the budget at the time to get myself into a rally car, and we also didn't really get the knowledge of the entry point into the sport, which was karting. So yeah, loads of part-time jobs when I was in school, and I thought I'd eventually get myself into a rally car, but um, a car came up for sale, happened to come up for sale in my own town, a circuit racing car, and I went to the bank, took out the money, and bought my first car in 2015. And it's hard sitting here now thinking back. It's such a short time. I've got to do so many cool things within that short space of time. In 2018, I was Irish Sportswoman of the Year. I became a Sean Edwards Foundation ambassador to promote safety within motorsport, and got to drive a Porsche in Paul Ricard in France. And then in 2020, I signed a contract with CJJ, and they backed me all the way to race a Porsche in the UK last year. So it's pretty incredible sitting here now thinking back in such a short space of time that I got to do so much. And I've even come away, I even got to drive 2 Formula 1 cars, which is pretty insane. Like, people always say it must have been a dream come true to drive the Formula 1 car, but I just thought it was just so beyond anything that could happen. There's only 20 drivers that get to drive Formula 1 cars every year. So to get to drive 2 within 2 years, pretty special. So yeah, I suppose I've got to do loads of cool things in a short space of time. I'm very lucky. I didn't think that I was different to anybody else, because my parents led me to believe that it was normal for me to be getting tractors and cars off Santa for Christmas. I didn't think I was supposed to be getting dolls and stuff. So it was only really when I came to the track for the first time, people were questioning, was I going to be driving that car that was parked in the pit lane? And I was kind of confused as to why they'd even ask that, because I didn't see myself as different. So I suppose that's kind of helped in a way, because women are a minority in the sport, and thankfully there are more drivers coming through now in karts and stuff. But at the time, I was definitely one of the minority female drivers out there. So I got to use that, and it's helped me a long way. And yeah, it's hard to believe the journey I've had in such a short space of time.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The amount of things that you've gotten to do in the past 5 years have been incredible. Have you found it hard as a female driver? I know you said that you did use it to your advantage, but were there times where it felt like you were fighting against, I don't know, I suppose it being a male-dominated sport?
Yeah, I mean, I've had it said to me, that I don't know if it's true, because no one has said it to me directly, but you hear that men just don't like being beaten by females in a car. I think there's a long belief that males are better drivers than females, but I think I've put in some good performances in the last few years, so I kind of see myself as equal. I just don't see there being a difference in being a driver just because, or a bad driver just because I'm female.
Yeah, of course. I suppose, yeah, you said that you'd spent your childhood in motorsport, so it's very natural. Was it hard to sort of get involved, or did you always know like what the paths were to get started? I know you said you didn't start in karting, but
yeah, that was the big thing that I missed out on. I mean, if I had the karting experience, I think that would have really helped me, and helped me develop as a driver. I've had a lot of learning to do in the last 5 years, and I'm still learning. But yeah, I know now that the entry, the paths to get into the sport, and that's helped me when I've gone I've done different talks, even in Sport Ireland with Nicci, and young girls have come up and asked, they said they didn't realise that this is a sport that they could actually do, and they were asking how they could get into it and stuff like that. So it's great now that I can talk to those girls and tell them, you know, you can start in karting, or you can go to your local karting track and try out rentals for the first time, see if you like it, get a feel for it. So, you know, it's great now that I can pass on that information, but I really wish back when I was 10 or 12 that someone would have told me, you know, to get into karts, because when I was that age, I didn't have a female role model. You know, I always looked up to WRC drivers like Sebastian Loeb. I don't know if you've heard of him. Like, he would have been someone that I would have always looked up to, but I didn't know that what his starting point was, or, you know, I didn't know anybody that was you know, just a little bit older than me that I could just go and talk to. So yeah, I mean, I think now it's playing a vital role, and I think that's the most important thing about Formula Female is, you know, you need role models for young girls, you know, not just to keep them in the sport, but to drive them into the sport as well. So hopefully I can continue to do that with Nicci.
Perfect. And do you have any other advice for girls who want to get into racing? I know you said karting. Is there anything else, like anybody as well, like not just girls?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those, like, I suppose I was lucky that I grew up around it, so I knew everything. But you know, it's something that anyone can give a shot at, and as Nicci said, you don't just have to be a driver. I mean, there's so many other aspects to it. Like, I wish that I didn't study accountancy. It's kind of wasn't a job for me, but I kind of just fell into it. But you know, there's other aspects to it, and I think if I had the likes of Formula Female initiative in my school, in secondary school, I think I would have definitely gone and done something in engineering or something like that. And you know, I don't know now, is it too late to change my career?
Never too late.
So I suppose, yeah, from there we have the GoGirls initiative with Formula Female, and this is actually exposing secondary school age girls to karting and the engineering behind motorsport. So obviously it hasn't been able to go ahead in person this year, but when did that start again?
We launched that in September 2019.
Okay.
So we got kind of halfway through the program before COVID eventually put a stop to it. But we are hopefully going to pick it back up once the schools get back before the end of the year.
Yeah. So, and what was the structure for the girls who were participating?
So we opened it up to basically anyone who was aged 13 to 16 from any school all over Ireland. And the idea is that we bring them to their local karting facility. So it could be an outdoor facility, it could be an indoor rental facility. And we would put them through an experience day of motorsport, basically. And we used motorsport as a platform then to teach STEM education. And we tried to bring, you know, some of the roles within motorsport to life so that they were actually performing the roles themselves, and they could get a feel for what it was like to work within a team or to work within motorsport. So yeah, that was kind of the structure around it. We wanted to really engage them and wanted to use, like as Nicole said, the visibility of role models to show them that other girls that are doing it. So a couple of the days we'd have young female karters who'd bring their own karts out and they'd do some demonstration laps, or we'd have, you know, we actually had a UCD student, Pippa Tracy, who became one of our GoGirls mentors. And I think Pippa's a really good example because she had no background in motorsport whatsoever. She wasn't even part of the Formula Student team. And she approached me and just said, you know, I'd love to know a little bit more about motorsport. I'm studying engineering. I've a real interest in aerodynamics, and wanted to talk to me about the masters that I did in Cranfield. So I told her, like, you know, come along to the GoGirls days, become a mentor, and you'll start to learn a little bit about the sport from that angle. And since then, Pippa's actually gone and she's now studying the motorsport engineering course that I did in Cranfield. And she actually interned with Nicole's racing team in the UK as well as a data engineer. So, I mean, that was just fantastic to see somebody who didn't have a background in motorsport and still, you know, I suppose that's what Formula Female is about, is trying to provide and show girls that there is an avenue there. And if it is something that they're interested in, we can we can try and help them get involved. So yeah, Pippa's in Cranfield and she's loving it, and I think she's going to hopefully get a little bit more experience with some UK race teams over the summer. So
that would be great. And did you have many other workshops? I remember you saying before with Formula Female, obviously before COVID, that went on.
Yeah, we actually completed 20 days, so we covered 20 workshops, and we managed to reach all 4 corners of Ireland. So we got a good few done in Cork and Dublin mainly, but we did get 2 or 3 in the north, and similar, we got I think 3 or 4 done in the west as well. So it was great to, you know, open the initiative to so many girls all over the country, and you know, a lot of them have different experiences based on where they live, and I think just being able to open up the sport to so many people all over the country was brilliant.
Yeah, definitely, that's amazing. I know certainly when I was growing up there was no exposure to karting or motorsport or anything like that, so the fact that you provide that to young girls and they have that opportunity at that sort of formative age when you're making that career decision is really important. Yeah. So you said you'd studied engineering and then you did motorsport engineering course after you graduated. From there, was it difficult to start getting involved in race engineering?
It wasn't, purely because Cranfield is such a good network with a lot of different teams, and I suppose being in the UK, they're a little bit more surrounded with a lot more racing teams at different levels. So there was a lot of different options to maybe get in with a race team, to intern with them and get some experience. For me, I had a connection in the US. Obviously, my uncle lived there, and my cousin actually raced for Juncos Racing, and they were actually looking for a data engineer for the race season. And it was my uncle who had just said, "Hey, why don't you come over?" And so I went and I took the opportunity, and it really was the best thing, because I kind of got thrown into the main role, and I had very little experience, but I suppose that can be the best way to learn sometimes when you get thrown deep end. But for me, it was just, you know, meeting new people and being in a new environment of working within a racing team. I really enjoyed, and you know, I was used to working with a team from playing sport and stuff, but this was a little bit different. And yeah, it was a new challenge, and getting to travel all over America was brilliant as well. And you know, I think the exciting thing about motorsport is, and Nicole will tell you, you don't know what's going to happen. Every weekend is very different, and you know, your race could be ended on lap 1, you could get taken out, or you could have, you know, obviously a great race then on another day. So it's sometimes very unpredictable what happens, but I think that adds an element of excitement, and certainly that was something that appealed to me in working. So
yeah, definitely. Do you have any advice for girls who are maybe studying engineering now and are thinking of moving into motorsport? Is there maybe internships that they can try out while they're still doing an undergrad now, or are there maybe places where they can do some experience in a garage maybe?
yeah, definitely. I think you know, anyone who is considering it, I think, you know, don't think about it as, you know, if you go into motorsport that you're kind of stuck in that. It's, at the end of the day, you know, there's so many roles. If it's engineering, you know, motorsport engineering degree is, you're probably going to have some sort of an engineering degree before that, so you're going to be well capable of stepping into any role. I think as well, you know, if you think about motorsport, if you think about the Pinnacle and F1, the research and development that they do tends to trickle down into everyday life. So you know, there's so many different areas that you can branch out into if you have experience in motorsport. And I think, yeah, there's, like, you know, we would be happy to try and help any young girl that wanted to look for some experience with a racing team and just kind of get into the environment and try and understand it and be around it. That's exactly what we're here for. And yeah, I think if there's anyone out there who's interested, definitely get in touch, and we'll do what we can to help out.
Yeah. So Nicole, how did you get involved in Formula Female?
Yeah, so I met Nicci in, as I think you were saying, it's 2018. I was trying to think myself. Yeah, when Nicci did her first race, and that's where we kind of made contact for the first time, which is mad because Nicci's so involved in motorsport, and you know, her uncle was a Formula 1 driver and her father was a very established driver as well. So it's crazy that we didn't cross paths before that. But yeah, we kind of been in contact since then, and just been involved in events like with Sport Ireland when we went to do a talk, and we did an event with Sport Ireland for Family Fest and brought a cart along and just showed you know, some younger girls what we were doing, and brought carts to a track and met up with other girls that were already involved to try and keep them in the sport as well, because I think there's an issue with young girls dropping out of sport in general at a certain age. So, you know, I think our role is to kind of to keep the role models there, to show them if we're not there, they won't think that they can continue in the sport, and I think that that's what's making girls drop out. So yeah, it kind of just took off from there, and we're both backed by John Campion and CJJ Motorsports, which brought us closer again. And yeah,
in 2019 then as well, we were both actually selected for, I'm sure everyone had heard of the 20 by 20 campaign, and you know, myself and Nicole were both proud athletes, part of the athlete club that they had, and we actually did a really cool thing where we it was the Show Your Stripes campaign. I don't know if you remember it, where you know, you made a pledge to show your support for the sport that you were involved in, and what we did was we did like a 1 lap challenge, Top Gear style event, where we invited 15 of Ireland's top sportswomen down to Mondello Park to take on Nicole Drought in a 1 lap challenge in a BMW around Mondello Park. And it was a brilliant day. And again, it was trying to use the 20 by 20s platform of, you know, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And we really wanted to use that message in what we were trying to do with Formula Female. And I think that day was brilliant. We had a lot of young girls come down and got to sit in the car, and they got to see all these athletes, you know, some really good drivers, some maybe not so good, but it was more just about the visibility and highlighting the sport, and you know, using as many girls as we could to show that. And I think it was a fun day in the end. So that was another cool project that we worked on together.
Yeah, that's very cool. One of the things that I saw online, Nicole, is that you actually drove Nicci's uncle's F1 car. Was it from the 70s?
I'm not sure actually what exact date. Nicci probably built.
Yeah, late 70s, early 80s anyway.
Yeah, how did that happen?
That happened, I think I found out like less than a week before the event. I knew John Campion was bringing the car over from the States. It was a historic event at Mondello Park. And I got a text message in work saying you're going to be driving the March Formula 1 car, and I nearly dropped the phone there and then, couldn't believe it. But yeah, the lead up to that was just petrifying. I mean, I just never thought that I'd ever get the opportunity to do that, and you know, I'll never forget that day. It was very special, and Derek was there as well, which made it even more cool. He kind of pulled me aside and gave me a big pep talk, and you know, made me laugh before I get into the car, because I thought I was going to be sick before I jumped in. But you know what? When the car got fired up and I left pit lane, it just felt so at home, and it was just the most incredible experience. At the end, all the marshals were out and giving me a big clap and a wave, and there was a big crowd on the pit wall, and it was like a movie. It was just really, really special. It's just something I'll never forget.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's really cool. Did it feel very different to the car that you usually race in, or was it?
Yes, I wouldn't be really used to single seaters, so I felt quite exposed when I got in at first. I'm used to having a roof over my head, so yeah, that was quite different. But yeah, I mean, once I jumped in and I got comfortable after a couple of laps, I just, you know, I was probably feeling a bit too happy, and at that stage, I was probably just as well that I got the checkered flag, because I would have started to push. But yeah, it was completely different to anything else I've ever driven. And the noise alone, I mean, you listen to YouTube videos of old Formula 1 cars, and you know, they're just unbelievable. But when you're sitting in it, it's another level. I mean, it's unbelievable. The noise alone, never mind speed and the, you know, how it feels, is just really, really incredible.
Yeah, those cars are amazing. They look beautiful as well. I suppose your Nicci had mentioned that you were going to be starting racing soon. I think in March, is it your next round of competitions?
Yeah, hopefully March or April. But it's looking like, you know, kind of same story as last year. My season was pushed out a little bit to May or June, so just have to wait and see how the calendar goes and how things go with COVID. But yeah, this year I plan on driving the same car as last year. So I drove a Porsche Cayman GT4 car, over 400 brake horsepower. So plenty of power there. It's quite fast. And yeah, I just can't wait to get back in. I mean, it took me the year to learn how it behaves and to, you know, get a proper feel for it. So I think coming towards the middle of the season last year, I really started to get comfortable with the car. So I think I can, you know, really put up a fight for the championship this year.
Yeah, definitely. What's a day-to-day like when you're preparing for races?
Well, I work as a trainee accountant during the day, which is not that exciting, so I won't get into too much detail about that. But training wise, yeah, I mean, my weeks are quite busy. I spend a lot of time. I'm sitting in my simulator at the moment, so I spend a lot of time on that. Last year I didn't know the tracks, so I spent a lot of time driving on this just to learn the layout. You know, I don't like driving into a weekend having to learn something new. So if I can just have the layout of the track in my head and the gears for each corner, that's something that's ticked off the box, and I can just go out and do it naturally and, you know, keep progressing with my times. But yeah, so I do a lot of work with my simulator. I also do a lot of training fitness wise. I'm sure people think that, you know, you're just sitting in a car, so you don't need to be fit, but it's quite demanding. You know, it takes a lot of concentration, and I do endurance races, so my races are an hour long, and we do have a pit stop, but it's quite intense, and you need good core strength, arm strength. Some cars I drive don't have power steering, so that's quite difficult. We also have to hit a high level of pressure on the brake, so you know, you don't want to be getting tired at any stage. And I also do a lot of work, mental work, which is something I've only started to work in the last 2 years, I'd say. That's brought me on huge. I mean, you know, it's really helped me with my confidence driving the car, and you know, I suffered a lot with nerves getting into the car and stuff like that. So, you know, I've changed my mindset, and now I prepare for a race. And it's, I suppose that I think the mental aspect of it helped me a lot more than anything else.
Good, yeah. And Nicci, what's the engineering side of motorsport like?
It's good, yeah. Like it's there's a lot to it. I suppose there's so many different variables that you have to take into account every weekend, and you know, I suppose every day's never the same in terms of weather and track conditions, and even, you know, car setups can change and feel different, even though you might have had the same setup, the same, you know, one day previous. It can feel a lot different the next day. So it's an ever changing thing. I suppose you're always just trying to figure out at that present moment what you can do in order to make the car feel good at that point in time. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be that good the next day or the next weekend. So I think that's the challenge in it. You know, it's exciting from that sense that, you know, it's every weekend is different, and every day is different, every test day is different, and you're always learning something new about the car. I think, you know, like Nicole will tell you, even from a driver, she'll learn something every weekend from the same setup one weekend to another. It'll feel somewhat different. So yeah, there's a lot to do. There's a lot to take in. There's a lot of information coming from the car, from the sensors, but I think you kind of have to just try and separate it a little bit and focus on maybe what the most important thing is to try and figure out and make better and work from there. So.
Cool, yeah. And did your college course have a lot of kind of practical work that helped with that, or?
Yeah, so the master's I did in Cranfield was very much practical work, and it was very project based. So we would do things that were like you were working within a Formula One team, you know, like we had to create active aerodynamic elements for a racing car. And you had to go through the whole design phase, a little bit like what Formula Student is doing with the racing car. We would do it just for individual elements to try and increase the aerodynamic efficiency of the car. So that was totally new to me. You know, you had to go from a concept idea and why you thought that this would improve the aerodynamics, and then you had to prove it through CFD, which is computational fluid dynamics. You're putting, it's basically a simulator that will test the aerodynamic efficiency of it, and whether you've gained or whether you've lost, and whether the car will actually improve its performance. And then you'll build a small wind tunnel scale model, and it'll go into a wind tunnel, and you'll try and simulate then the car being active and with those active aerodynamic elements on it as well. So it was really hands-on, and there was a lot of technical stuff in it, but I think the fact that you were doing it and you were learning as you went made it a lot easier to grasp the technical side of it. So
yeah, that all sounds amazing. Getting to be able to do those models and testing them out, that sounds really interesting. I wonder, is there any advice that you would give for any engineering students that are thinking of going into motorsport, maybe modules that they can pick or areas that they can focus on which will apply more in motorsport?
Yeah, I mean, like, I studied mechanical engineering, and there's obviously a lot that transfers over in that. I think if you can do any sort of modeling, AutoCAD, CFD modeling, that they'll definitely transfer. They'll really help you. Like, the better you can be at them, the better you'll be, and the more you'll be able to do when you go to do a motorsports course. What's the other one? Other ones then are like MATLAB and kind of computer science elements, because a lot of that will be in writing new software for simulations and things like that. So yeah, I think any sort of computing courses that are involved in your engineering degree will be really helpful for transferring to motorsport.
Okay. Yeah. Jessie, do you have any other questions?
No, that's all great. It's so interesting to hear you guys talk about your careers and stuff. I'm Formula Female. If anybody watching has any questions, they can pop it in the chat if they don't want to unmute themselves and ask as well about anything.
Hi, I just have a quick question for Nicole there. I was just wondering, so obviously you had a pretty rapid ascent from starting to where you are now in the motorsport industry. And I was just wondering if you thought that like your knowledge of growing up around cars, about like the mechanical and the engineering aspect of racing, like really gave you a competitive advantage when you're like behind the wheel. Like, is that something you think would be like vital in terms of your success, or not so much?
Yeah, I mean, I really thought when I was younger that you just needed to jump in and just drive, and if you could drive, you could do it. But there's so much more to it, and you need the machinery. First of all, you need the people around you. You need a good team of people around you, and I give it quite a bit of feedback in my test sessions and stuff like that, and that's just something that has happened over time. It's not something that I learned. Not something that I grew up and knew. So I was kind of on the back foot there, that I didn't have that much mechanical knowledge growing up. But definitely as time went on, and just listening to other drivers and listening to the engineers, it's definitely brought me on leaps and bounds. So it's something that I would say, if anyone that hasn't grown up in a motorsport or in a car family, it's something I would say is just throw yourself in there for an experience into a team, like what Pippa did in the UK last year. And she was all questions all weekend, which was great. And I think she left the weekend, with getting herself thinking about what she needed to know and what would benefit her in college. So yeah, I think it's something that's just over time that I learned, and just from gaining experience from hanging around with teams and drivers that brought me along.
Yeah, fair enough. Cheers. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions? They can unmute themselves.
Hi there. Sorry, I was just wondering, is it common for physics students to transfer over into mechanics or that kind of thing? Is the master's purely for engineering undergraduate students, or?
No, it's not. I'd say with a physics background, you'd be more than ready to go and do a master's in motorsport engineering. We had a lot of students that came from not even an engineering background. Now, they might have had some experience of working in a team, but they didn't necessarily have a mechanical or an engineering background. They could have had like a business degree, or they could have had some other degree. Certainly that was the case when I was there in my class. So I think physics is very much a huge part of motorsport. So I think you'd be more than like set to take on the course.
Great, thanks. It's just we don't learn any CAD or anything like that in physics. I was wondering if we could add a disadvantage.
I mean, I didn't have a huge experience of CAD. I think I only did it for the first 2 or 3 years of college, and it was very much an introductory kind of style. You know, I wouldn't have known any sort of advanced CAD or anything like that. But, you know, I think when you get to that stage, like I was probably more capable of learning new softwares when I was leaving college than maybe I was when I was starting college. And so when I got over there, I had a lot to learn. I certainly wasn't an A student or you know, didn't just go in at ease. So, you know, you might have to teach yourself as you go, but, you know, the lectures and the information that you're given over there is fairly helpful, and it'll help you, you know, understand what you need to do for that project. You might not need to know the whole operation of the software, but it'll certainly give you enough information to kind of get you going with the project that you're doing.
Great, thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Oh, we have one here in the chat here. So it says, hey guys, just considering the can't see, can't be quote, do you think we're far away from seeing a female driver back in F1?
That's a good question. We only just posted about that yesterday in Formula Female. It is hard to know. I think, you know, the one thing I can definitely see and say that's happening is that, you know, there's a lot of initiatives now to try and to promote the sport and to encourage more young girls to get involved at the base level. And I think, you know, the more the sport can grow and the quicker it can grow, I think the sooner it will happen to see a female in Formula One. You know, the W Series is there now, which is an all-female racing series, and they've just collaborated with Formula One, where they will now race at the same weekend as the Formula One race will race at 8 tracks around the world. So it's trying to put, you know, female drivers out there on the global platform that Formula One has, and with that, then, you know, again, it's the can't see, can't be. The more girls that you can allow see it and to think that this is something that they can do, it increases the population. And as Nicole said earlier, you know, there's only 22 drivers that get to Formula One, and at the minute the balance between female competitors and male competitors is really skewed. So it's hard for, you know, men to get into those seats, never mind women. So I think until we grow the population of females racing, and until you grow the number of opportunities that you can give to female drivers, I think that's when we'll probably see a Formula One driver. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, how do you see it, Nicole, as somebody who's racing at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose Formula One is kind of out of reach for everybody. At the moment, it just seems it's full of money, so it's very difficult to get into. But yeah, I mean, there's huge progress with the W Series, which is a single-seater series that started last year, I think. The year before, and they're racing all over you know, really famous tracks, and this year they've made a contract with Formula One, so that'll definitely give more visibility to Formula One teams, because I mean, they're going to be racing the same weekend, so the team principals or whatever will be keeping an eye on who's racing, and you know, it's definitely going to give them more visibility. So even though there might not be maybe a Formula One female driver in the next couple of years, there could be reserves, there could be test drivers. It'll just give that bit more of a push, and hopefully I'm sure at some stage it will happen. But as I said, I mean, it's very difficult to get into anyway. Just a hard circle to break. But yeah, hopefully I'd love to see more professional drivers. I think that would be something that would be more something that could happen. So hopefully, fingers crossed. Anyway, going the right.
Yeah, hopefully the W Series looks amazing. I think also Jamie Chadwick has come on as a reserve driver for Williams, I think. So hopefully she'll make it onto the track one day. We'll get to see her. I have another question here that says, hi, just a quick question. You mentioned the huge racing base in the UK. How does Ireland sit for motorsport?
I think, well, at the minute with COVID, it's probably great, but yeah, look, we have a number of different series in Ireland that are definitely, you know, good enough to introduce people into the sport. And I think that, you know, everyone that looks to try and advance, they'll always start in their home country first, and they'll go through the ranks, and they'll make their way, you know, up to the next level. So, you know, we have a good karting scene here in Ireland. There's a lot of young karters. I think there was a young guy last year went to the karting world finals and won it. I think he was 10 or 11. So, you know, we have a competitive enough environment here, and it's certainly a great way to learn. And it's like Nicole will probably tell you from being on the track herself, you know, it's nobody's kind of out there racing too friendly. Like it's serious enough stuff, and it's a good kind of place to learn before you advance on. I think Nicole might add to that.
Yeah, I mean, we've some incredibly experienced drivers here in Ireland, and you know, make no mistake, we're a small country, but there's a strong pool of talent here, and it's incredibly competitive. And it was really tough for me when I was racing here. But you know, I suppose the UK is the next step that we always look to race, and you know, at the end of the day, it's a lot of money, but you know, the guys that are putting money into their race cars in Ireland, as Nicci said, everyone wants to win. Nobody's there just for the bit of crack.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, yeah, everyone wants to win, and they'll do whatever it takes to do that. So yeah, I think there's a really, really strong level of competition here. And it's been said, actually, we had a conversation about it with my team in the UK, and we're, you know, asking what it was like in Ireland. And from their experience, any Irish driver that has come over has really, really excelled in UK sport, and that's to us kind of the next level to go and race in the UK. So it was really, really nice to hear that as well. So yeah, there's definitely a strong level of competition here.
Yeah, of course. Jessie, do you have any more questions?
No, does anybody want to put it in the chat if they don't want to unmute themselves? Or
no one has any more questions? Don't be afraid. Okay, I think we'll take that as a no then. I suppose, is there anything else that you wanted to add, Nicci and Nicole, before we close it there?
Not really, other than I kind of had said it to you guys before we jumped on the call, that it's great to see, you know, more girls out there who are interested in the sport and to, you know, push forward with women in motorsport. And I think that's a really nice thing to see. Is, you know, I know I'm passionate about it, but to see more people interested in it is really starting to show that it's growing. And yeah, I just think thanks for having me on. It was great, and good luck with your Formula Student project.
Thank you. And thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, Nicole as well.
Yeah, just from my side, it's lovely to see loads of female names, and the boys are obviously welcome here as well. But you know, it is great to see some girls out there that are interested as well. And just to say, like, if you can't think of any questions now, that's fine. But if something comes to you later, you know, don't be afraid to reach out to myself or Nicci, and if we can help you in any way, yeah, just get in contact. It's no problem.
Yeah, of course. And if anyone wants to pass on questions through us, either just message us on Instagram or any of our socials, and we can pass them on as well. Yeah.
I might just jump in there because I just spot Steffi has just joined the conversation. Hi, Steffi, how are you?
Hi, everybody.
So we might just take this opportunity just to talk a little bit about what myself and Steffi are doing for anyone who's on the call that might be interested. Steffi runs an esports company called Init Esports, and it's to use sim racing as a method to get into motorsports, and particularly for females. So myself and Steffi are going to co-host a conversation tomorrow evening. It's on an app called Clubhouse, and it'll be 8 p.m. Irish time. But for anyone who's interested in learning about, you know, if there's gamers out there, esports, sim racers, if you're interested in coming on and talking more about women in motorsports and sim racing, then we will put some information up on the Formula Female page and Steffi's In It Esports page also. And yeah, happy to have anyone join. I just thought I'd mention that if anyone would like to further the conversation.
Yeah, of course. We'll share that link with the emails afterwards, the same emails that we sent with the Zoom, so everyone will get the details of the event on Thursday. Thank you, Steph, for joining. It sounds really interesting, the sim racing.
Yes, thank you, everybody. I'm sorry that I'm late, but I was on another meeting, so I'm glad that it's still going on. So I missed the conversation up until this point, but it's an honor to be here, you know, and get to know all of you. So just a quick introduction. I'm a former racer, but two wheels. I am 3-time world champion on motocross for the women titles. And yes, like I just create a company to do sim racing because I care, like Nicci, you know, to try to get possibility to women to follow their passion. And if it is for motorsport, even better. And we think and we believe that sim racing can be a first stepping stone to help people to get to learn and be passionate of the sport as a whole. And yes, so we are having this clubhouse conversation on Thursday. So everybody is invited. You want to come in, join, ask questions. And the whole goal is to create a much larger community for sim racing and motorsport and for women specifically. So thank you for having me.
That's amazing.
You'll notice Nicole's sitting at her sim.
Yes, I know. I noticed.
It's a nice one.
Okay, perfect. We'll send all those details on then for anyone who's interested in joining the Clubhouse meeting on Thursday. I just want to thank everyone and just give a quick mention. We actually launched our GoFundMe for 2021 this year. It's up on our socials, you'll see the link. So if you're interested in donating to our project and just giving a bit of money so that we can continue to build our car, we'd be very grateful. Otherwise, I think that's everything. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you so much to Nicci and Nicole for coming and speaking with us as well and to launch our first DriveFemale event.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.